Hello everyone. Welcome to Father to Son, where I ask my dad
Gary,
the real questions.
How much are these cameras worth?
Dad, would you please sit down?
How much are these cameras worth?
Dad, I got something to ask you.
Why do you need two cameras?
I'm borrowing two of the cameras to make
Gary,
a
how
show
many cameras do you
with
have?
you, where I
Gary,
ask you the real questions.
If we sit close enough, you will only need one camera.
You are a sick man, Dad.
Look, wait, hold on a second, Gary. I have another question for you. Has anyone been asking about me?
Well, what kind of question is that?
Has anyone been following you today?
What is going on? You are not the same man who raised me, who taught me to be kind.
Gary, I have another question. Do you know what happens to little boys who rat on their papa?
What has gotten into you?
Have you seen the gray Sedan?
What?
Gary, if anyone gets in your business, say it's not your business, that's my papa's business.
You are a sick man, Dad. I know that you have a problem. And listen, Dad, I'm here to help you.
Gary, do you believe in me? Okay, then calm down.
Dad, what? Dad, what are you talking about?
Father, I
Dad,
know you're home.
get back here. Dad, what's going on?
Hey, kid.
Hello.
Are you Gary's father's little boy? I guess you thought your papa was an honest guy, huh?
My name's
Really, your papa owes us a whole heap of money. We're gonna get it. Where is he?
Listen, kid.
I don't want to hurt you. Say what, kid?
I am not my father's son,
We're gonna smash up the place
Where
unless you
is
tell us
your
where your
father?
father is.
but I am his little boy.
We're gonna
Where
find
is
him.
I've been trying to
one
ask
way
my
or
dad
another.
the real questions this whole time.
Kid, I can smell him.
What are these cameras worth?
Hey, I'm borrowing those cameras. Hey,
Yeah,
you
nothing
goons.
bad.
Get out of my
Come right here.
house.
We need to have a dialogue with
Come
your
with a
father.
trap
I'm
up
not having
to
fun.
Enabling
Oh.
addiction.
You think this thing is worth
wanna go
anything?
home.
Sorry, kid. This'll do for
I've
now.
had enough for 1 year.
I guess. Sorry about your papa, kid.
Dad, I'm moving.
And stay out, you son of a bitches.
To live in the woods.
You aren't doing anything to my son. You weren't taking... Oh no, Gary, they got away. Say what, Gary, next time we'll really show him.